I know that there's new technology out and it's in liquid form, but I think that antennas are sort of a way of the past, but it can be a blast from the past where it capitalizes off. So how can you remediate and have the best transfers? There's types of antennas that you wouldn't be able to think they were, and they're actually in the shapes of lenses. There's antennas in the shapes of snowflakes, even antennas that are, and it's corners. Just as I suspected, in frequencies is half the battle. When in coupling energy with it is the moderation of different shapes of antenna. I think this is where it gets buggy, where there's all these different shapes of insects, and it's no surprise that a lot of them have antennas. Something like that is like a physics symbol, but what if you can utilize antennas to build up symbols of physics and have them be a higher meaning? I think that's what Egyptians strived for with their pyramids, but fell short. So a lot of the problems what's been happening isn't because of refugees coming in. It's men who are weaponized and coming in before the refugees are allowed. That's incredibly political and somewhat enticing. So with that, I'd like to say I think that I'm going to be aiming for the worst possible scenarios because you can shine light on them the best. Behind me is some hazardous waste because algae can be harmful, very much like a refugee. But who's to say? Where's the proof within the pudding? It would resign in how well the design can. One of the benefits of chemistry is knowing the molar mass. The molar mass is a special thing because it has across the board the same schematic. An eye for an eye, or 7 billion trillion atoms per 7 billion trillion atoms, no matter the construct's chemical makeup. It's this that crystalline structures would strive to achieve in corrupting the structures to emulate what the molar mass is. And you can go the easy way and cut corners to dilute stuff to make it crystalline-like, so it imitates a cryptography, and then dial it in to do heinous acts of hacking. Or you can do hazardous waste and understanding it to elevate what's worse than a hazardous waste is a leaky biohazard lab or a wet market. Even though it could be one and the same, it doesn't matter because they both are able to make a constraint. It's with this that the structure that is imitating of a nucleotide but isn't quite a nucleotide. If you've ever taken chemistry, there's the first thing you need to do is know how to chemically balance the equation. This can be very misleading because it's not well orchestrated. Mainly, you're throwing up a whole bunch of whole numbers for no odd reason other than trying to find a balance. The balancing act of which things are thrown about after you've balanced it. It's like if you balance an entire sludge with a whole entire agriculture's nutrient base, and you find the equivalence between either, and then you just throw them all together. What was the point of doing all the work to balance it at? And so when there's nucleotides, this is an atomic structure which leads to a genome, and a genome code is something that's utilized in creating things that are heinous acts worse than hazardous waste in biohazard labs or wet markets. And so if you're faking what a nucleotide might be in order to corrupt the system, that is going to be the aim within the crosshairs of a firewall. Firewall is like a floodgate, but the floodgate can definitely be reversed to no end. So it's real important not to make that happen, because in a runaway with a nucleotide is catastrophic. So I would love for an antenna to be as a spark plug inside of a car, but to be like 10 times more smart. Do you know what high-tech computers have? There are things called kernels, and how smart a kernel is like an antenna that's been jacked up. If you throw an antenna as a spark plug in an engine, what good would it be? Well, it would have to be utilized through the most brilliant components in an engine, its pistons. How much different is a piston to a spark plug? It's the difference of a cylinder. So when you have all these different shapes of antennas, how can you mark its environment to be as an engine of a car, and yet a kernel in a computer? One of the benefits of having an antenna be used as a computer or a car is that it could also turn a profit if it was in a garden. But who's to say what a garden is if almost everything inside of an engine is soiled? You know how dirty these roads are? How much sediment kicks up about an engine? What if one time an antenna had a turnip pop out? That's just as likely as a forensics team having a doctorate degree and healing people in a hospital before the crime got any worse, because they were that ahead of the mark. The two opposites, of course, is forensics and hospitals. And then farming in the middle of